Harassment by my mother-in-law. Comment. Please provide more context. At first, I put up with it, but if she was getting carried away, I would stop listening and quickly come up with excuses to leave the place. I became distressed by the accumulation of such incidents. I researched on the internet and found many books about problems between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law and how to solve them. I even gave her a brand new after discussing it with my husband. She seemed happy, perhaps because Mai was there, but she did not thank me, never saw her use it. I'm Nancy, a 26-year-old housewife. I met my husband, Dan, through work, married 2 years ago. He was self-employed and quite busy. We lived with his parents. It was them who proposed that we live together. Dan was the eldest son and was very oriented. I knew there was no way for me to the moment the idea came up. Anita was particularly enthusiastic.
We have renovated and added more to the house. You'll have your own space, so it's deal, right?
She said over and over again. Although I accepted it, I made it clear that we would not interfere in each other's affairs as much as possible. If I told her directly, it would have issue, so I asked Dan to do it. When she was told that, she looked displeased. In the end, she was happier to be alive with us and accepted the conditions. I had been working as a temp before I got married. I quit the job at Dan's request. To be honest, I didn't really like being idle at home. Instead, I got busy taking online CC acquiring skills. I had come to understand after living together with Anita that she was much more nagging and particular than I had ever imagined. One day, I heard her shouting from bathroom.
Hey, Nancy, I told you many times to buy the said detergent. You should have bought the SAR detergent.
I'm sorry, Anita. I couldn't find it at the usual supermarket.
Then go around to the others you find it.
If I did the laundry, she told me which detergent to use and which clothes could be washed together. One time, whether she was just having a bad day or she really didn't agree with what I did, she told me to redo all of my work.
Don't worry about it. They are properly cleaned.
Don't talk back to me. You are so can't believe you.
She glared at me. When she got upset, she did unimaginable things compared to her. Petite and skinny figure, and I couldn't handle it. She once threw my favorite dress that was hanging out in the yard on the ground, making it all muddy. I got nervous whenever she started fit. She had never done any housework before, so it was all up to me. Since it was for the whole family, quite a lot. She had a mug of coffee in her hand, watching me work with a smile on her face. It made me somewhat angry. I consulted Dan several times. He was very helpful, taking time out, busy schedule, to listen to me. It was just that he was a bit timid and couldn't take a strong stance toward his mother. I had been patient with her at first. Later on, if she gets carried away, don't listen to her and quickly find an excuse to leave. When I became distressed by the accumulation of such incidents, I searched the internet and visited the library. I looked into problems and solutions, inlays on the websites and in various, and took countermeasures in that way. I pretended that I didn't care, and to her with good humor. I tried to talk back a little. I also picked a time when she seemed to be in a good mood and told her nicely what I wanted her to stop doing. I even gave her gifts that matched tastes. I spoke to Dan about it, and we were both crazy about the brand. She seemed to be pleased with the G because perhaps Dan was there, but utter a word of appreciation. After glancing at it, she never used it. Her petty complaints continued I began to think that it was different from the promise we made when we moved in the first place. She used me as her housekeeper. Her upbringing and education have something to do with the way she treats people. She was born and raised in a somewhat wealthy family. She attended a private high school and graduated from a private university. On the other hand, my mother died one early in my life. I grew up in a father-daughter household, starting to work as soon as I graduated from middle school. A college graduate versus not even, despite the different circumstances, was the fact.
You are really lucky, aren't you?
She always said sarcastically to me.
You are married to Dan, even though a low education. Thank you for your kindness, which has blessed us with a good life. But I think you should have known ya and stepped aside.
Was at a loss for words.
You should at least devote yourself to housework and take responsibility for lowering our family standard.
She triumphantly proclaimed to me. I didn't know what standard she was about, but I doubted that a normal person would do such a thing. When I looked up the university she attended, I found that it wasn't as good as she made it out to be. It did not have a rich history or tradition to be proud of, and the rate of getting into college or finding employment was not that great either. I was not impressed. For her, I guessed it was more like a daughter-in-law who wasn't at all with her beloved son. She loved to travel with her friends, took equestrian lessons among other hobbies. When she returned from a trip, she usually in a good mood and bragged to me.
My hobbies enrich me and relieve they are indispensable for me,
she declared, but her hobbies were quite expensive and concerning to me. The travel destination was often her horse cost a lot of money to be. She left all the housework to me and to freely make her own schedule. I didn't see her as having a stress. If there was stress, it should have been dissipated by bullying me. Moreover, whenever she needed money, she always came to us.
Hey, can you lend me some money? I really want to see you soon.
It escalated to the point that Dan to tell her,
Aren't you spending a little too much? I can't give you any more this month.
She seemed not to care and came up excuses to persistently ask for more. He usually ended up giving her money all. She always said she would pay, but we never received any money back. I let out a sigh as I kept an accurate record. We had lent her over $2,000 since the beginning of that year. It was only the beginning of summer, but it wasn't looking so good for the future. At that moment, she passed by and went to make lunch for herself. It was a usual occurrence, but it purred nerves for some reason at that time.
Could you go and buy or order your today? I'm too busy and already tired.
She looked at me with a puzzled look on her face, but she quickly became angry.
What a lazy person you are. You can't do anything but housework, should at least cook lunch. I always tell you that something's sin enough for me.
There are supermarkets and delis within walking distance that serve delicious, ready-made food. I have other things to do. I've explained it to you several times before.
Are you serious? You want me to do something I don't want to? Stop talking and hurry up. I'm hungry.
She and I were talking in parallel. Well, it was the same old thing, so feel anything anymore. I had something I really needed today. I excused myself and got up from She was infuriated seeing me leave.
You're an ungrateful bitch. An Irish girl like you doesn't need to be in this house.
I couldn't remain silent, being called a liar.
Incompetent. What is incompetent? Please enlighten me. What about you in that case? You leave the housework to me while you play around, and you even ask me for money. Who are you to tell me that I'm incompetent?
She flinched a little at my unusual response compared to my usually careful and calm tone. She continued to counterattack me.
Enough. Get out of here.
I involuntarily tightened my expression. Inwardly, I was thinking it was a good idea. I tried to keep as calm as possible and responded to her.
That's fine. I'm actually happy to leave. I've been wondering what good there in this kind of life, but you're going to regret it. I
I immediately turned my back on her to my room. I felt surprisingly refreshed. It was as if I were the heroine of movie. She was cursing me out, but I could less. Soon after that, I packed my necessary things and left the house. I called Dan to make sure he wasn't worried. He sounded quite surprised at first. I told him about all the bullying I had been keeping in my heart.
I'm really sorry, even though I didn't know about it until now. You've been in so much pain, and I there to help you. 33.
He apologized regretfully. It was a typical Dan, one thought, too.
I know I have faults too. It's already past anyway. I just need some time away.
Riding the train to my dad's house, asleep, thinking back on everything happened since we got married. I was startled by the announcement arrived at the station. It was dusk and a chilly wind was Tom's surprise, I saw my dad standing at the exit. He was usually very quiet and a little stubborn, so I never knew what he was thinking, so I didn't expect him to come to my rescue. I noticed that he had lost a little weight and gained some gray hair since we last saw each other. When we were walking side by side, quietly,
You've been through a lot.
I'm sorry that I made you worry.
I suppressed the tears that threatened to well up in my eyes. I felt a warmth in my chest. We walked along the road to his house, catching up on our lives. When I first started using my dad's phone, I realized that there were many mistakes on it. My friends normally sent me messages and rarely called me. I got a bad feeling about it. When I checked, they were all from Art. I looked at the details and saw that they had called me several times in the past few days. After what happened, I haven't forgotten about it yet. To be honest, I didn't want to call. I reluctantly decided to do so. There might have been something important. Then, she picked up right away as if she had been waiting for me. I was surprised to hear her unlisted.
Hi, Nancy. I'm very sorry. Please come back. 33.
I was a little taken back.
What's wrong?
Well, I was cleaning Dan's room a few days ago and I found something. I think it's a financial statement.
I knew what she was talking about. Dan's company was incorporated half a year ago, so it was normal for him to make detailed statements.
A statement? What about it?
I had no idea he was making so little money. Didn't you know that? Why didn't you tell me?
She became emotional and her voice suddenly broke. I had the urge to cover my ears of her usual tone, which I hadn't in a while.
I've told you about it several times. Sounds like you never listened to.
I don't remember that.
Well, I guess you don't. You love talking about yourself, but not interested in what I tell you. 33.
I'm going to buy another horse. I've already signed the contract. Please, can you lend me some money?
She made such an insolent request too at that point. I let out a small sigh and answered,
Well, Dan and I are not your wallets. Please use your own savings. Besides, you will eventually receive a pension, right? Why don't you try to manage within means?
I don't have many savings. Please, I'm begging you.
Before that, do you have enough money to live on this month? I think you were just barely making last month. Since the one who has been cooking gone, you must have been eating out food all the time. 33.
She cleared her throat and fell silent. I had hit the bullseye.
Your cooking wasn't bad. Actually, Dan told me to apologize, reflect on what I had done. 33.
Oh, did he? Well, I don't care anymore. 33.
Of course, I didn't mean it, but I think of anything else to say. I just strongly hoped that I didn't be involved with her anymore. Unaware of my thought, she happily.
Is that so? That's great. We are reconciled now.
Will you come back soon? Her tone of voice brightened. I was amazed by her self-serving way of thinking.
I can't live with you again, so please don't ask me to. Instead, you may want to worry more about your own future.
What? What do you mean?
She was puzzled as she had no idea. I didn't need to explain it to her. She would have understood when the time came. Thinking I had said enough, I hung phone. She had a lot of time on her hands. She continued to call me persistent that I had no choice but to block her. 6 months have passed since then. I'm watching my dog happily running my yard. It's a pleasant morning and just relaxing in the sun. After careful discussion with Dan, we have decided to move out of our parents' house. Then we bought a beautiful, semi-detached house that had just come on the market. We have a mortgage now. It has a better layout than before, more comfortable to live in. We chose a location that was convenient for Dan's work. He is more lively than before. As for my in-laws, they're now stuck with their mortgage because we're not helping them. They've moved to a small apartment town. Of course, Anita's been complaining. I feel sorry for my father-in-law being sandbagged by her, since she had spent so much money on her hobbies to enjoy her life. He was left with almost nothing in his savings account. After he told her to live frugally, started to do housework more than Ben. When she cooks, it takes quite a long time to make one dish, which neither looks nor tastes good. I've heard that my father-in-law is better than hers. She had been nagging me so much, but ouch, she can't even do it herself. How embarrassing. It no longer matters to me anyway. I've gotten a GED and plan to attend a university in the fall. I'm accepted to a popular university with a long history and tradition. I have always been good at mathematics and interested in economics. I taught myself stock trading while working as a temp and playing around with online trading platforms. I started with a small amount of money in the S fund and gradually increased it over time. Dan's business was hit hard by the recession when I left home after a dispute with him, and his income dropped considerably. At that time, I was earning a steady and was able to bring some income my household. Because of my father-in-law's pride, we didn't inform our parents about it. If they watched my behavior closely and used common sense, they would know that I am not a threat. While we lived together, Anita looked after me as a housekeeper. In the end, she missed the opportunity to live happily as a family. I did think about divorcing Dan however, after discussing it with his father-in-law, we agreed that she would have no further contact with me. In fact, I'm feeling much better now, and my investments are going quite well. Sir, I haven't been seeing her lately. The hot coffee I drink while being the sight of my cute dog brings me in my life. I look up at the clear sky, excited anticipation.